So my dad at work was a boss. He was a foreman on a loading dock for an aluminum company. So he supervised about 20 guys, shipping and receiving department. So at work, he was the boss. At home, not so much. Not so much. My dad would come home every single day from work, whether it was after working third shift first thing in the morning or working first shift in the afternoon or second shift, come home at 11 o'clock at night. He would come home to this seemingly unending and growing list of chores that was on the kitchen sink for him. That was kind of daily added to and compiled by my mom. And so as a little boy, I remember watching my dad walk in, and he'd see this list, and he'd walk right through the house and go out in the backyard and start doing the things that were on the list. And as I watched him as a kid growing up, my dad, he would just do these things and check them off the list. The list never ended. It just kept growing. He never could get to the bottom of the list. I watched him, and I watched his jaw start to tighten up over the years. And I watched this bitterness and this resentment start to come out of my dad, but he just remained passive and continued to click things and check things off the list. This was life for my dad. Until about 16 or 17 years ago, one night, we were sitting at a high school football game, my dad and I were watching my buddy's twin sons play football. And my dad's talking about something else. All of a sudden, he shifts the conversation, kind of caught me off guard because he got really angry, and he says, "Son, I don't know that I can take this anymore." And he was talking about my stuff with my mom. 8 hours after our conversation, my dad had a massive stroke, and he spent the next 4 years of his life in a nursing home before he passed away. And my mom loved my dad in those 4 years in an unbelievable way. She came for his heart, and half the time he didn't even know who she was. But she was there. She ate dinner every single day with my dad while I was in the nursing home. And it was a really, really sad time in the period in our family, but my mom and dad finished well. To the best they could, they finished well. Now that story is about my mom and my dad and their relationship, so what does that have to do with me? That's a great question. And here's the answer. I carried that experience into my relationship with my wife, Stacy. I carried that baggage, that junk, that experience into my relationship with my wife, Stacy. This is how this stuff works. I mean, you need to know this stuff. We're not immune to this, right? This is how this stuff works. I happen to be married to a beautiful lady, Stacy, whose primary love language is acts of service. So she feels most loved by people when they do things for her. She feels most loved by me when I do things for her, which creates huge problems for us. I talked about this. In fact, I talked about it last week. She is afraid to ask me to help her. So here's a person whose primary love language, she feels love when people do help her. She's afraid to ask me to help her. Do you see the challenges that this could create in our marriage? And now, why is she afraid to ask me to help her? I'll tell you why. Because I typically don't respond in a very loving way. And why don't I respond in a very loving way? I'm a pastor. I'm supposed to love Jesus. Supposed to love her as Christ loved the church. Why don't I respond to her in a very loving way? Here it is. Here's the part you got to get. Please understand, this is how this works, okay? Because when she goes there, I don't hear her. I hear my mom complaining or getting on my dad, telling him to do something or telling him that she's not happy with the way that he did it or he didn't do it. That's what I hear. And something rises up inside of me. Something starts stirring inside of me. Let me just tell you something. It's not the Holy Spirit. All right? It's a spirit, but it's not the Holy Spirit. And I'm not proud of that, but it's true. Something starts stirring inside of me, and I respond and I react, and I'm not usually proud of the places that I go to there. I'm hearing the voice of my mom, getting on my dad all over again. I'm telling you, this is the stuff that works. It's all the junk and all the baggage that I'm bringing to this relationship. I'm telling you, this is the way this stuff works. And so when conflict hits, I assess blame. You're the problem. It's my default position rather than addressing my own baggage and what I'm likely bringing to the fight. Now, again, let's be clear on this. I am not asking you to be a doormat for anyone. I am not asking you to stay in a relationship that is abusive or dangerous or unsafe for you or your kids. No. But I am asking you to ask yourself the question, are you aware of the baggage that you are bringing into the conflict that exists in the relationships that you have in your life?